In today's video, we are going to be going over graphing inequalities. I have a few examples for us, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, in all of our examples in this video, the inequalities are already solved. I will link a video right here up above with how to solve inequalities, and it also goes over the symbols at the end of the video, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and how to read those and really get more comfortable with these new symbols. All right, so when we do have less than or greater than symbols without that line underneath that also indicates equal to, we're going to be using an open circle. And if they do have that line underneath, then that's going to indicate that it could also be equal to that value. So we're going to use a closed circle. But let's go ahead and get started with this first one. Here are my 3 steps that I always use when I'm graphing inequalities. The first thing I want to do is identify the value. Okay, so x is less than 5. 5 is my value that I'm focusing on. So since this number line isn't already filled out for me, I'm going to just drop in that 5 in the middle there, and then go ahead, and I like to put in a few numbers both to the left and right just to kind of fill out my number line a little bit. You might already have number lines that are pre-filled in, so you don't have to do this step. All right, now the second step is we're going to decide if this is going to be an open or closed circle. So I don't see that line underneath this inequality symbol, so that means it's going to be an open circle at that value of 5. And then we need to shade or draw an arrow to the left or to the right to show what values x could equal. This is a little bit different than equations, because with equations, our variables usually just equal one single value. But in inequalities, our variables can be many values. So we have to decide what works for x in this situation. So what I like to do is I like to look at either number on either side of my value that's here in the middle and plug it in. Let's see which of these works. Is 4 less than 5 or is 6 less than 5? Well, 4 is less than 5, so that means that my shading or my arrow has to go this direction so that it covers that 4. It goes over that 4 and any other numbers that are lower than 4. So that is how we're going to graph that first inequality. Let's go on to the second one. X is greater than or equal to -2. Our first step is to identify the value. I see -2, so I'm going to go ahead and just plot that right there on my number line, and then again just a few other values to the left and to the right of that. Now we have to decide if it is open or closed. Well, I do see that line underneath, so we're going to use a closed circle. And then our shading. X is greater than or equal to -2. Some of my students have learned, people like to teach it this way, that you can just look at the shape of the inequality symbol and it's sort of like an arrow telling you which way to shade. However, I don't really prefer that method. I prefer to choose the values on either side and substitute them in for our variable and decide which one is correct. As we'll see on some of these later examples, when that variable isn't first, it can get a little bit confusing. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute in -3 is greater than or equal to -2, and then -1 is greater than or equal to -2. And -1 is the greater value over -2. Since, we're talking about negatives, then it's sort of opposite. So I'm going to shade to the right. On number 3, as I said, that x, that variable, is on the right-hand side this time, but our 3 steps will still work. So let's identify our value of 16. Go ahead and drop in a few other values to the left and the right. And then our circle needs to be closed because it is a less than or equal to symbol. And then let's see which of these works. So 15 and 17, let's go ahead and substitute those in. 16 is less than or equal to 15, or 16 is less than or equal to 17. Well, this option is the correct one, so that means we need to shade over towards the 17 and then beyond that. So as you can see, this symbol, if we were to use that trick that some people like to teach, that is actually pointing to the left, but we did need to shade to the right on this one. All right, on number 4, let's go ahead and identify our value of 0. And then we've got a 1, 2, -1, -2. And then our circle is going to be an open circle above that 0 because we don't have that equal to symbol. And then I'm going to go ahead and substitute in -1 and then substitute in +1. Well, 0 is greater than -1, so we're going to go ahead and shade to the left. And just as a side note, some people like to do the circle and the arrow kind of hovering above the number line like I'm doing here, but you can also put your circles right on the number line and then do your shading on the number line as well. You just kind of darken in one side of that number line. So that's also another way that inequalities can be shown, can be graphed. On these last two problems, I encourage you to pause the video and try them out on your own and then resume and see how you did. All right, so our value for number 5 is 10, and then we should have a closed circle above that 10. X is greater than 10, so out of 9 and 11, 11 is going to be the one that satisfies that inequality, so we're going to shade to the right. And then for number 6, we've got 3 and a closed circle for this one. 3 is greater than or equal to x. So that means out of 2 and 4, 3 is greater than or equal to 2. So we are going to be shading to the left on this one. So how'd you do? Let me know in the comments below. Also, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.